Hey, listeners, before we get into today's episode, our great interview with Aubrey Sitterson, author of G.I. Joe over at IDW, you're going to hear our brand new theme song. It is done by our friends J Flax and the Heart Attacks. They are an amazing band out of the Washington, D.C. area. You can find out more about them at facebook.com/flaxandtheattacks. And they have a show coming up in Richmond on December 10th at the Hardywood Brewery that if you're in the D.C. area, I recommend you go out there. Ben Penserga, I'm looking at you. And tell them Joe and Joe sent you.
Joe! Joe! Joe on Joe is the only podcast where Joe talks about Joe. And now, your host, Joe Slepsky.
Hey, and welcome back to Joe on Joe. I'm your host, Joe Slepsky. And this week we have a very special guest. My guest today, he's written comic books for Marvel, DC, Image, Oni, and now he's writing the ongoing G.I. Joe series at IDW. As an editor, he worked on Ghost Rider, Blade, Punisher, X-Factor, The Irredeemable Ant-Man, Invincible, and a little-known comic book called The Walking Dead. You may have not heard of that book.
It's a cult favorite.
Yeah, it's an up-and-comer. We hope it does get some legs one day. And he's also the host of his own podcast called The Straight Shoot, which has been called the world's smartest wrestling talk show.
That's what they tell me, man.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to Joe on Joe, Mr. Aubrey Sitterson.
Ow! Yeah! Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Aubrey, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm very excited to be here disturbing these folks' comic buying experience.
We are live at Golden Apple Comic Books. It's a Wednesday night. We've got some...
it's packed.
Oh my God,
packed.
there's so many people.
People are waiting on the sidewalk. They're fighting with each other. We had to call the police 20 minutes ago.
Joe on Joe favorite, Rebecca Wallenczak. My wife isn't even here tonight.
Don't say that. Listen, I'm trying to spin it for you. They're hanging from the rafters in here.
No, we're gonna have
a butt every 18 inches.
We are gonna have a good time, and I guarantee you. Here's the thing, because G.I. Joe Revolution just hit the stands today from IDW, and it's the G.I. Joe one shot that's a part of the ongoing IDW Revolution crossover. And when people read that, this place is going to be packed the next time we do it. Next time we do it, Joe and Joe.
G.I. Joe fans.
With Joe fans.
Rabid.
Absolutely.
They're going to get rabies from reading my book.
Aubrey,
that's my promise to you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm stoked, man.
I'm so excited. So, G.I. Joe Revolution hit today. You also wrote Street Fighter X G.I. Joe.
The X is silent.
Yeah, what is the X? What was it?
Just
Versus?
don't say it. Just Street Fighter G.I. Joe.
Street Fighter G.I. Joe. I loved that book.
Thank you.
It was great. It was so much fun.
It was a weird book, right?
Yeah, it was totally weird. I mean, it played,
I don't think people knew what to make of it, really.
It played like an episode of like a game of Street Fighter.
Yeah, I mean, like that was the conceit. You know, like I approached it thinking, you know, what do like the Venn diagram of Street Fighter and G.I. Joe? Where do they overlap? And the answer to that question is fighting. It's fighting one another.
Totally.
And I figured like that's really, you know, whenever people do crossovers, there's a good way to do a crossover, there's a bad way, and the bad way gives people all this extraneous stuff that you think maybe they want, but they don't. They really just want to see these characters interacting with each other in the way that's appropriate for those characters, which really just means Street Fighter characters fighting G.I. Joe characters.
That
and so
worked for me.
The most expedient way to do that, I figured, was like, you know, you mentioned the wrestling stuff already, but like a King of the Ring format. It's just a tournament.
Yeah.
It's a 16-person tournament because there are men and women in it, and they fight each other, and it is nothing but fights. Like I think by the second page, they're slugging each other.
Totally, that's all it was. Yeah, you did have me when you knocked out Snake Eyes early, and then it was all a ruse, if I remember correctly.
It paid off.
It was all a ruse.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, because I'm like, come on, Snake Eyes is not losing that early.
But that's the thing, you know.
On,
I tried to structure it like you would a King of the Ring, right? Where
you
know people get injured, and there's like these long-running storylines, and people make allies and enemies over the course of the thing, and you seed things earlier and you pay them off later, and it was fun for me because it was an approach I always thought would work with comics, but nobody really done.
It was reminiscent of Marvel versus DC.
Sure.
You know, where they squared off. I think Boom did. Oh, a Contest of Champions.
Sure.
Boom had, but you're right. But few and far between.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, look, I know this guy.
Hey, John Carl, everybody.
Welcome. You're right. I think the difference for me, at least, is that there are a lot of comics that are just fighting, right?
Yeah.
There are
Yeah,
plenty
yeah.
of them, right? But the conceit behind Street Fighter G.I. Joe was really to not only just be fighting, but to use the fights to tell the story,
And they did.
like a wrestling match, like a wrestling card. And yeah, that was. So I'm very glad you dug it. 'Cause
I really did.
It was a weird. Approach.
The
recognize
one thing I actually before I wanted to ask you this as a reader, long months before I knew that you were doing the series and we were having on the show and all this stuff. You seem to know a lot about Street Fighter. Were you a big Street Fighter fan?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
like the backstories of them. Like
yeah. I honestly I was a bigger Street Fighter fan than I realized because I it was one of those things where I was like, oh man, I'm gonna have to do all this research and just get hip deep in the backstory of Ken and all this stuff. When I started reading it, I realized, oh, I know this.
Yeah.
Orca, he's an Amazon river monster. I get it.
Well, specifically, I was impressed with the who's the overweight redhead guy.
Oh,
That
wait, the
eventually-
blonde guy?
Or was he blonde?
Rufus.
With the girlfriend?
Rufus.
With the, yeah.
Ooh, I love Rufus.
That dude, the way you handled him was fantastic.
Thank you.
I came away, I did not know, I haven't kept up with my Street Fighter gaming, so I wasn't familiar with him. I came away from that series loving that guy.
Awesome. That's so good to hear because he's
Loving
my
him.
favorite.
Yeah,
And
'cause he's ridiculous.
I adore him. So like he was a Street Fighter 4 character,
Okay.
and so for people who don't know, he is this very rotund.
Yeah, it's a heavy set.
Yeah, he's
Big boned.
He's husky. He's a husky, white, blonde,
healthy
American
for his age.
with like a long braided queue of hair.
Yeah.
and I don't know. He's got facial hair kind of like
He's like the
mine,
Kingpin
that
with
handle.
hair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's just this big, like gelatinous fat man who wears like a Bruce Lee Game of Death like yellow jumpsuit and then does movie style kung fu, and he is arrogant and kind of mean and just lousy,
And he's
just the worst,
And he's got the hot girlfriend.
and he's got the hot, very stupid girlfriend.
Yes. Now,
and
is
that's
she
the
in the
bit.
game, or did
yeah,
you-
yeah, that's
That's
canon.
so
That's
funny.
canon. Candy, his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And in his the little the classic like pre-fight little lines of dialogue,
Yeah, yeah,
or like
yeah.
the ending or whatever. Candy's always involved in those, and so he's a Street Fighter 4 character, and I included him. So I owned and played Street Fighter 4 and loved. I'm very bad at it. I'm extraordinarily bad at Street Fighter.
Well, you're not a 13-year-old boy.
Oh my god, it's so
If you're
difficult.
a 13-year-old boy with
Virtual
a vulgar,
Fighter-
if you're a 13-year-old boy with a really foul mouth,
What?
then you'd be amazing at it.
I just feel like I don't have the reflexes for it. It's so difficult. But I loved Rufus because of the aesthetic, and I loved that he was just this insufferable jerk.
Yeah.
And I wanted to make sure that, guys our age, I think, and people of any age have a tendency to, when they work on these properties, they only pay homage to the era that they're familiar with, right?
Right.
And as much as, for me, the Street Fighter experience is defined by Street Fighter 2, I know that there are plenty of people who are a lot younger than me who adore the latest Street Fighter release,
Yeah.
and which is why I wanted to put a bunch of recent characters. So not only him, but also Hakan, the big Turkish gentleman who covers himself in oil before he fights,
right.
which is
Yeah,
another favorite
yeah,
of mine,
yeah.
and Crimson Viper as well. We're
like-
both from Street Fighter 4.
It was like the Greasy Strangler before the Greasy Strangler was the Greasy
Great.
Strangler.
I love it. And that's a real thing. That is like a real fighting style. It's
Of
like
covering yourself in oil?
Yeah, and it's like the Turkish national sport. They get all oiled up and they wrestle one another. It's real.
We try to keep this podcast PG, so I'm not even going to make half the jokes.
It's amazing.
I'm not going to make half the jokes that I want to make right now.
I watched a lot of YouTube videos.
Oh, I'll
of
bet
it.
you did.
It's great. It is so excellent.
Queenie, did you check his browser history on the greased up Turkish YouTube videos?
it was a family affair, man. We sat down and watched them.
That's so cool. So, growing up,
Yeah.
When not to if you don't want to say how old you are, you don't have to. We are in Hollywood after all.
I am 53 years old.
53 years
I'm
old.
A well-preserved 53.
So when you were
That's not
watching
true.
Leave It to Beaver live on
I remember when
what were your
when the Beatles came to America.
What
the
were your
Sullivan Show.
formative cartoons?
Honestly, so I loved the Sunbow Joe stuff, which is why I'm excited to be here tonight. I adored that as a kid. As I got slightly older, it was all about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
All about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a big one. Thundercats, Voltron. Those were probably the biggest one as a young kid.
You passed the awesome test
Thanks,
because
man.
those are all awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Now, toy-wise, did you get into collecting, like, do you have the turtle toys?
Of course. Yeah, I had a ton of turtle toys. Turtle toys, so I had G.I. Joe toys. I didn't have as many. I had some He-Man, but, again, not as many. I think it was, like, I was just on, like, the back end of that. So I was a little young for it. A lot of turtle stuff. A ton of Battle Beasts.
Battle Beasts.
Do you remember Battle Beasts?
The name sounds really familiar,
Battle
but
Beasts
describe
were
them
the
to me.
dopest. So they were they were anthropomorphic animals, and they were little. They were about like half the size of half the height of a G.I. Joe, right?
Okay.
And they're very stocky, and they're animals. They're anthropomorphic animals, and they have like battle armor on, and they have like cool weapons, like cool plastic weapons they hold. But they also have in the center of their chest a little hologram, or not a hologram, but like a lenticular type thing that you rub.
Okay.
And it shows either wood, fire, or water. And so
This is coming back to me
and so
now.
then they beat each other, right? Like based on that. But the lenticular thing
like
always falls
Rochambeau.
off.
It was like Rochambeau with toys.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
This is coming back.
And then they but the little hologram things would always come off, and so I always had mine. I divided them by species type.
Yeah.
Right? So all the canines would team up, and then all of like the cat creatures and all the sea creatures, and then they would all fight each other. That's how I decided like the teams, right? But no, I loved Battle Beast. I was really
That's so cool.
really
Do you have any of them left? You
Yeah,
sell
my
them?
mom most of my toys I sold regrettably at like lousy yard sales and swap meets. And stuff.
Yeah.
There's a place. So I grew up in Richmond, Virginia. There's a place called Bubba's, and it was where my grandfather always went to buy his lotto tickets. Like he wouldn't buy his lotto tickets anywhere else. He didn't win, so I feel like why does it matter? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
need to keep buying them here. But on the Saturdays they would do swap meets, and I took all my toys there and sold them, except for Turtles, Legos, and Battle Beast.
That's so cool.
Those are the ones I kept.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I did a purge of my major toys on eBay over the years, but
Yeah.
the one thing I wouldn't get rid of is my Joe figures. So
Gotcha.
I've got all my Joe figures except for the ones that came with their vehicle, because I felt like I'd get more on eBay if I sold them as a whole.
That's fair.
Yeah, and it was more for space purposes, not for any lack of.
Yeah, I wish I had more. I mean, especially now doing the Joe stuff. I wish I had had more Joe toys as a kid. But I don't know. I just didn't. I can't even tell you. Like I loved them. Like my favorite was so I've been telling this story a lot lately on my like round of interviews and stuff. But you're gonna like it.
I love it.
I'm telling you, you're gonna love it. You're loving it already. My favorites were really just. I mean, and this is the other thing, and I try to keep this in mind as I'm working on G.I. Joe. Is that for most kids, like everybody has a different favorite G.I. Joe character, and it's everybody loves Snake Eyes, obviously, right? But then beyond that, once you get to like the second tier of like your second and third favorites, it's weird. It's out there, like and, like so everybody's is somebody different. And I know that because mine were Storm Shadow, which isn't that weird, but I always preferred him to Snake Eyes because I thought he had a better costume, and I figured that by virtue of being Japanese, he was therefore a better ninja than Snake Eyes.
Well, I mean,
That's a hot take,
it's that
right?
it's that kind of thing that led to the death of the Hardmaster.
Right. Yeah. So I always liked Storm Shadow, but then my true favorite was Xandar.
Yeah.
Which is a weird choice, right? Not even Zartan. It was Xandar, and it was because I thought that he was a punk rock Native American. Because like he's got like the battle paint, but it's like the pink hair,
Yeah,
like
right,
the bandana.
right,
It's
right,
like
right.
like I don't know. I just like it wasn't until seriously like 5 years ago that I learned that man was not he was
Native-
British.
not Native
Yeah, I thought he was
American.
American
No,
Indian. I thought
yeah.
he was like just punk rock Cherokee or whatever. He's not.
I had chameleons as I was a kid, and the first one was named Zartan, of course, because you
Cool.
would want to name your chameleon
Yeah.
Zartan. When he died, and I got 2 replacement ones, it was Xandar and Zorana.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Xandar. Xandar and Zorana
He's
as a
cool.
pair, they were
Neat.
very cool.
Yeah, I didn't have
They were
Zorana. I
good-looking
think probably
figures.
just because like I don't know, I didn't want a girl
Chicks,
figure. Yeah,
girls.
I don't know. It's very
Boo.
it's very hashtag problematic of me, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a child.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I loved Xandar. I just thought he looked so rad.
That's so. Well, he had the lightning bolt on his chest,
Yeah,
right?
man, 2 of them, and they're pink.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
that's
edgy.
awesome. Which Storm Shadow did you have? Which like was it the original or was it the second one with the black, like the kind of black blocky squares, like the hood?
Yeah, he had the white hood, and I want to say he had like darker camouflage.
Yeah,
spots
camouflage.
on it.
Yeah. That's like the second iteration of him.
That's the one I had.
That's a good looking one.
Yeah, he's cool.
Let's talk about Larry Hama.
I'd love to.
What's your influence there? So you're writing the new G.I. Joe,
Yeah.
the new G.I. Joe Ongoing, which we're going to get into some details there. What's your influence? The Larry Hama series. What's that influence on you?
So here's the thing. Without Larry Hama, G.I. Joe would not be what it is now. It just simply wouldn't. I mean, like, you can't really overstate that guy's importance or his influence on it, on the franchise as a whole. I'll be honest, though. For me, my core influence, being the age that I am, so you asked me earlier, and I made a joke about it. I'm 33.
Awesome.
And, I mean, that's important because I think I'm right at the end of... I'm young enough that I didn't read Hama's stuff. I just didn't, you know, and like when it was coming out, I was too young for it, and I watched the cartoons, and that was my exposure to G.I. Joe. My love for G.I. Joe really came from the cartoons, and it came from the action figures, and the back of the boxes and stuff like that. Which Hama may have wrote a bunch of those for all I know.
He wrote most of the battle cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, his influence was there, but that wasn't my primary influence. I didn't read that stuff until much, much later because it wasn't collected, because it was licensed stuff from Marvel. And they, it's the same reason I've to this day not read like Micronauts or ROM or anything, because you just can't find it. And it's a lot easier now, but I'm busy. I'm writing G.I. Joe, man. I got things to do. But no, so I didn't actually read that stuff, any of it, until I was working at Marvel, and I could get it from like the library.
Sure.
Like they keep and like bind like all the old copies and stuff. And I read that stuff, and I was really impressed by it because it holds up in a way that a lot of stuff from that era absolutely does not. And I know that's.
It's not sacrilege.
No,
it's
yeah,
true. I mean, it's true.
Yeah,
it's true. Modern comic tastes have changed. The language, comic books are a language. It goes back to cavemen and literally painting on walls. And as that has obviously changed over the years, comic books have changed too. The language of it.
I mean, it's the same reason. I mean, it's true of anything, right? Like, it's the reason that Seinfeld holds up a lot better than like The Single Guy.
Right.
Did,
Yeah.
Right?
Totally. Hey.
Listen, I like that show. There's a reason I remember that show, right? I can't remember the ones I don't like.
Jonathan
Silverman? Is that
yes.
right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of real single guy fans.
Yeah, a couple of huge single guy fans. One half.
Must see TV, man. We were
totally. Come on. Where else are you going to be? It definitely, comic styles change, and I love hearing people appreciate, especially that era, because that was my era too, growing up. Because there are some really, really, really well written comic books from that time that hold up, that a lot of people aren't given a second chance.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love the Hama stuff, and I have actually steered clear of his current Real American
Sure, that makes sense.
Hero series, which, if you're not aware, you should be. It's really cool. Like, so I've read some of it going back, but as soon as I got this gig, I decided to steer clear of it because I didn't want to be. I didn't want to get confused. Number one, because the continuity, and like I had to read like I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I read like 8,000 pages of IDW G.I. Joe comics, many of which I'd read before, but not all of them. I reread all of them in like 3 weeks, and my head was swimming. And I knew that if I started reading the Hama stuff, also, it would just confuse me. And also, I just didn't want to be influenced by it. If he's doing a thing with Scarlet, I don't want to, subconsciously absorb some of that. Of course.
Well, that brings us to your current work on G.I. Joe IDW. So you mentioned continuity. So tell me about that.
Yeah.
So right now, Revolution just hit the stands today. And
the Revolution one shot.
Revolution one shot. Yep. And then the actual ongoing, when does that start?
It's December 28th.
December 28th.
It's scheduled for.
What's the continuity of that? That's what I want to know. Is that set? Are you starting a new continuity with Joe, or are you following the most recent IDW series?
It's following all of the IDW stuff, so all of the mainline IDW stuff.
Okay.
Not the Hama stuff, which is separate. And this gets a little bit confusing because Hama actually wrote some of the mainline G.I. Joe continuity stuff as well. But no, so everything that happened since IDW got the license, excepting the Real American Hero series, and accepting, of course, out of continuity crossovers like the Street Fighter one I did, and as well as I hate to break to you, the Transformers G.I. Joe,
which is so good,
from Scioli and Barber. Yeah,
it's so
it's amazing. It's the best thing.
But that's not even but that book couldn't even be in its own continuity.
No, it's lunacy. It's great.
It broke its own rules.
Yeah,
so many times.
That stuff doesn't.
That's cool.
That has nothing to do with it either.
That's
but
cool.
Yeah, like all the stuff. So I mean, if you have read the IDW G.I. Joe stuff, like all the stuff with Chuckles, Cobra Civil War, invading the pit, and the mass devices, and all of that stuff has it happened. It's
great.
It's part of our continuity. We're not losing that. We're not bringing anybody back from the dead, which bums me out because I love Chuckles.
But they did him so good.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like the way that they handled Chuckles, and like I wouldn't want to bring him back.
Yeah.
I feel like it would dishonor the great work that, especially Mike Costa on that stuff.
Totally.
Really
and the way, it's so funny, I just talked about that on the last episode. The way they handle Chuckles, his death actually resonated.
Sure.
For multiple series past it, and it's rare even in like the main, like with Death of Wolverine stuff. Just to pick him literally out of a hat. He died, but then his death didn't matter as much.
Right.
But Chuckle's death actually had an effect on the books that followed. It's
so
hard
yeah,
to do
no,
that.
I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to disrespect that. And also, like from the get go, from Jump Street, the idea with this stuff was everything that happened in both G.I. Joe and the Transformers books, because they're 3 monthly ongoing Transformers books from IDW. Everything that happened, and we're not glossing over it. We're not having a crisis where we decide which stories like actually count and which ones don't.
IDW Rebirth.
No, we're not doing any of that. It all happened.
All new, all different IDW.
And I'm sure if somebody really wanted to get nitty gritty about it, they could find like some weird inconsistencies of like, oh well, the Transformers exploded this city, and yet here the G.I. Joe they rebuilt it. Whatever,
Right.
we're brushing some stuff under the carpet for sure. But everything happened.
I do have a question though, continuity, and this is super nitpicky. In one of the one shots, they on the Transformers side, they have was it Melissa Fairborn?
Yeah.
Who was always canonically the daughter of Flint and Lady J.
Yeah.
Are you guys gonna deal with that?
Well,
Have you thought about that, or am I looking behind the curtain?
I'm trying to direct my wife to a friend of ours who's here. That's why I'm being weird and awkward right now. It's a lot going on right now. Yeah. So here's the thing. I'm aware of that. I have had more conversations than I care to admit with John Barber, who writes Transformers, about that very thing. I mean, the math of it doesn't work though.
Right?
I mean,
no, it doesn't.
It is impossible. Like
she's a time traveler
for that. Yeah, unless we wanted to do that, which I don't really. But I don't know.
That doesn't feel right.
No.
So has she been? So she has been a character in Transformers then for a while.
She has.
I don't follow the current series.
Yeah,
okay,
she has.
That's funny. Hey, you know what? It's comics.
It's comics, man.
It's comics.
We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it later.
Thank you for answering that question.
Comics, we'll handle it later.
Oh my God, I love it so much. Hey, I've got an announcement, Joe on Joe fans. If you're listening and if you're in the LA area, we have a very special offer for you right now. Golden Apple Comics. Black Friday is right around the corner, Aubrey. Did you know this?
I gotta go.
Yeah.
I can't be wasting time here.
You can't be wasting time here because you got to come back here on Friday morning. Golden Apple Comics is offering, if you say this special secret word, which we are going to give out at the end of this episode, guess what you get Friday morning from, I think it's from like maybe like 11 to 4 or something like that?
A hug from you?
75% off your back issues.
That's even better.
Yeah, for real. So at the end of this episode, we are going to give out the secret code word.
Cool.
That if you come into Golden Apple and share this code word, we'll give you 75% off your back issues.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
That's a fun way to handle things.
It's exciting. And a fun way to get people to listen to the whole episode.
We got you.
We got you. Snafood. Oh, that's so great. Yeah, so you know what? I think we've talked enough, Joe. I'm super excited. What else can you tell us about the ongoing series? Any spoilers? Any
There's
hints?
a Transformer on the team.
On the team?
Yeah, man.
Can you share who it is?
Nope.
Okay.
You gotta buy G.I. Joe Revolution, the one shot.
Oh, it's in the one shot?
Maybe
Awesome.
not. You gotta buy everything I do though.
That's
you also gotta buy
absolutely true.
Street Fighter G.I. Joe.
Well, real quick. So you used to be an editor on X Factor.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, the Peter David Madrick stuff, right?
Yeah.
I love that series.
Cool.
I loved
That's
that
great
series.
to hear.
It was such a good series.
It had a lot of really dedicated fans.
Yeah, and as well it should have.
Yep.
And Irredeemable Ant-Man, that's the Irredeemable one that Kirkman wrote,
that's
right?
Kirkman, Phil Hester, Andy Parks. Yeah, man.
Yeah, Irredeemable Ant-Man was awesome.
That was another book
was
that had very
fantastic.
very dedicated fans.
Yeah.
It was an interesting thing because it was right on the like these days you can have a book that's an internet hit, right? And mobilize support around it and kind of save it, right? Like it's a much more common thing. Back when we were doing Irritable Ant-Man, the only books that really managed that were Spider-Girl, which got ripped from death's door like 1,000 times, and X Factor, right? Irritable Ant-Man, if people. As many people.
I think you just called it Irritable Ant-Man, which I want a series called
Slow down the tape and
Irritable
listen to it.
Ant-Man.
I think I
right
said
now.
it properly.
No, I want one called Irritable Ant-Man.
If people,
It's an Ant-Man with irritable bowel syndrome.
if you judged from how people talked about it on the internet, you would have thought that book was selling 800,000 copies a month,
yeah.
right? Just people adored it, the ones who read it. Yeah, well, I was very bummed when that I was very, very bummed when that series.
Yeah, well, you should be proud of it because it's really great. I was bummed when they actually killed him off. It was Avengers AI where they killed him and replaced him with an LMD or something like that. Yeah. I was like, that character was awesome.
I thought he was really neat.
What was his name again?
Eric O'Grady.
Eric O'Grady.
Yeah.
He was so great. Like, you should have kept him around.
I liked him a lot. My favorite issue was the World War Hulk tie-in because do you remember it?
Refresh me.
Okay, so what's great about it is at the time, they had this deal with like Old Spice where we needed to do product placement.
Yes!
And they told, and like, if your book was selling at a certain level, they're like, guess what? You've got to do product placement. And I said, oh, okay. And we put one on every page.
I do remember
We put one
that.
on every single page. And there was one page where Ant-Man had shrunk down. It was a World War Hulk tie-in, and he'd shrunk down, and he'd gotten swallowed by Hulk, and he was in Hulk's stomach. And Phil and Andy drew a thing of Old Spice floating in Hulk's stomach acid. It's so stupid. I loved it. I wanted to put, also on the cover, because at the top it was like the world's most unlikable superhero.
Yeah.
I wanted to change it to the world's most Old Spice superhero and use the logo. And they, I don't know, somebody pumped the brakes on that one, and they wouldn't let me go that far.
That's fantastic. Awesome. Okay, so we're going to get into it. Remember, stick around till after the episode. We're going to give out the special secret code to get you 75% off at Golden Apple Comics. And you can find Aubrey on Twitter and Facebook at Aubrey Sitterson, AubreySitterson. And you can find me at Joe on Joe Pod where I'm on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to be a guest on the show or if you want to send me a note, send it to joeonjoepod@gmail.com. So we today are watching today's part 1 of a 2-parter. Are you going to join me for both parts, I assume?
Yeah, man. If we get moving, let's go. Let's do it.
We're into it then. That's a demand from the man.
I'm throwing it
we're
down.
going to get into Captives of Cobra, and here we go.
Fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. I love it. I'd forgotten how much I loved the theme song because it sounds like a lounge singer. I'm screaming right now because I have that.
No. Yeah, no. You're good. You're good. Yeah, it does. It's very loungy.
It sounds like Wayne Newton or somebody is singing it. It's the best.
What does this? What kind of emotions does this bring to you?
Joy. Excitement, being here with you, Joe, ready to watch this. I also love too. So I'm in the midst of my own rewatch of the Sumbo stuff because it is foundational stuff for me and how I look at G.I. Joe. And I wanted to kind of refresh my memory and maybe take some cues and stuff on the ongoing series.
Yeah. Easter eggs.
Yeah, and it's super fun watching how they change the opening sequence for each like little round of I don't even know if. It's not seasons, but like story chunks or whatever.
Well, one thing I've noticed in watching it through, too, is that you can really definitely see. So we start the show with Captives of Cobra, Part 1, written by Christy Marks. You could see where there were some episodes that were developed
Who
earlier.
lives there, by the way?
It looks like Snake Eyes' cabin, quite frankly. We got a cabin that's sitting on top of a mountain range, but inside that cabin are a bunch of Cobra scientists. And we know they're Cobra scientists
like
because
do.
they wear Cobra masks.
That chemical. I didn't want to look
some
suspicious.
Completely suspicious looking guy who just claimed to not want to be looking suspicious.
He's
just
carrying that glowing liquid around in
Yeah.
a paper bag.
Also,
I love it.
He said he didn't want to look suspicious, yet he's the only guy going up to the one lone cabin on top of the mountain.
On top of a giant rock.
Yeah, on top of a giant rock. So he hands him some chemical. There's something wrong with the chemical, and whatever experiment, which we don't know yet, that these Cobras are working on, it explodes, and that's quite the explosion.
Everybody gets out of there.
That's
There are jets nearby.
It looked like the surface planet in episode 7.
My favorite thing about it is that they were trying to be inconspicuous, but there's also just Cobra jets all over the place.
Oh, totally. Well, I mean, this is the same universe where you have extensive enterprises where
It's the best. I love it
Rattler's
so
VTOL in and out of that building in the middle of downtown, and people are like, oh, extensive
I
enterprises.
sound like
what
I'm
are you
making.
gonna do?
If I sound like I'm making fun of it, I certainly don't mean to be.
Oh, no,
Because
no,
I love
no.
it. I
It's
adore
what we
it.
do here.
It's the best. I'm not even making fun because the thing that's really struck me about watching these is it's just nonstop plot. It's nonstop plot, and now we got Wild Bill, and he's get in here, and I've got my helicopter, and we're gonna go do this thing, and Gung Ho's trying to get home to his family, which is the best. He took his hat off because this is his civilian.
Because
wear.
I mean, he's taking some time off. Oh, now he's upset.
He popped his shirt on.
It is all plot and it's all character, and what we love about the show is there's so many characters. Like you were touching on this earlier. There's always going to be one person that you attach to.
Of course.
There's always going to be one character that you're like, oh man, they just throw so many at you without apology. Like here's a new character, and this is what they're up to.
Well, and that's kind of like what's one of the things that's so neat about the show is how expedient it is, because they know that it's 22 minutes long and it's for kids, and so they got to recap at the beginning. They got to say what happened. And this is the beginning of a story arc, so we didn't get that this time, but next time we will.
Totally.
And they got to recap what's happened, and then they got to get immediately into it because they've got like 10 GI Joes they have to include in this. Barbecue's
Oh, we got a lot. That's why this is a two-parter.
Yeah,
because this is we're getting a lot of Joes, and we're getting a lot of Joe's extended family in this episode,
which I like.
Which is awesome.
I'm a big fan to see where these Joes came from.
Well, so what's happened is the Joes are aware that this whole town is under trouble because the Cobra explosion.
A rock is
going
to fall on it.
Yeah, boulder's just going to crush the town. So the Army Corps of Engineers literally
I feel like
is
that's
out there.
the greatest trouble a small town can face.
Wait, look
a
at
giant
look
rock.
at this, though. There's this huge crevasse. Finally, the bridge layer comes into play. They're always bringing the bridge layer, and it was like the worst toy. But the bridge layers always get in play because there's always huge chunks, even though they have helicopters that
fissures.
can fly over.
There's a lot of fissures.
So
that need to
we've got Torpedo.
forded.
He's in the mix.
Careful, son.
Except Torpedo just almost crashed into these crystals. So from the explosion, there's these super volatile crystals that have been growing, and Torpedo's I think he's about to show us how volatile they are. Right there. For being an explosives expert,
I love Gung Ho. Also, Gung Ho just falls and his head just smashes into the ground. He doesn't bother to stop or anything.
Yeah.
He's
So
a big galoot. I love him.
the tiniest sliver of this gem that's growing, it caused this giant rock to shift even more. So it's really going to crush this
It looks like a
town.
big potato. Just so everybody
Oh,
knows.
absolutely. It's also a little bit.
Who is
like,
this guy? Who's that guy back there?
Well,
with
that's
the
Alpine.
Oh, is that Alpine?
Yeah, that's Alpine.
And come up with something completely new.
I'm showing my ignorance here.
No,
I didn't know
no,
I didn't
no.
know Alpine. There's so many.
Alpine's great.
There's so many. I didn't have an
Alpine's
Alpine
great.
toy.
He's got great personality, and one thing that they're doing here that I really like is they actually use their expert Tripwire. Tripwire's an expert. He's a demolitions expert. Normally, like one of the other episodes we just watched, they brought in Bazooka, who's a big galoot, right?
Figured out.
Yeah, figure it out.
Your football uniform.
This is Tripwire, who's actually the expert in the deal. So they bring in Tripwire to solve the problem.
And he also just trips and almost face plants into it immediately.
His name is Tripwire.
This is the best Cobra look, right?
Yeah, what's
The
your favorite Cobra
the
commander?
hood,
The hood?
The hood.
Yeah, me too.
It's not even close,
Yeah,
man.
me too. So Cobra realizes that these gems, these crystals, they're really Cobra property. So they want to use them, obviously, for their own nefarious means. So Cobra Commander screaming at the Baroness.
Tell me, Commander.
And
who in all the
so
world
we know
would
that
you
they're going to go in and
never
try to
have
extricate
come
some
to
of these
harm?
crystals.
Fool.
When did you? So you say you watched G.I. Joe as a kid? Was it like after school, or was it like what was your schedule?
You know, it's weird with all these syndicated shows, right? Because it's just depending on your market.
Yeah.
And it was never really super consistent either. I think that's probably the biggest reason why I didn't watch more of them is I never really knew when they were on. this is well before DVRs and stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I saw most of them before school, like while I was
Yeah.
like shoving breakfast in my face.
Well, there was a time they were on early in the morning.
Yeah.
And then there was a time they were on after school.
Ah, look at this
Oh,
Storm
there's your
Shadow
man,
hiding in a robot.
Your favorite man, Storm Shadow. He just popped out of a robot, and he's going to break into a top secret military installation.
What in the...
What the?
Help! Intruder!
Press all the buttons.
I don't know.
I love too that Storm Shadow's like he can ninja kick these computers into doing things.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me.
Well, I mean, he's got it's the ninja toe shoes that let him do everything. So this is.
I wish we could slow this down because I love everybody's real names.
Yes.
Everybody's real names.
Well,
Like,
their
real names
they're-
are absurd.
Yeah, they are. And Hector X Delgado.
I love it.
What does the X stand for? I have a feeling it's not Xavier. It's probably just X. I think it's like Street Fighter X G.I.
I
Joe.
think it might be Xavier.
It's Street Fighter X G.I. Joe is what it is.
A lot
It's
of people
silent.
don't realize that Shipwreck Hispanic. A lot of
yeah,
people, a lot
right.
of people don't know. Like that's a thing that goes over a lot of people's heads.
And we also find out in this episode that he's adopted.
Oh yeah.
So who knows if he's actually Hispanic? Delgado might
That's
be
a
his
great
adopted
point.
family's
I feel
name.
like I don't know. I feel like he could. I
Oh,
like
he
to think
totally
he
could
is.
be. He totally could
I like
be.
to think he is.
Bring them to me.
So we go into commercial with Cobra about to kidnap the G.I. Joe family members, and we'll be right back. Today's file card features on the G.I. Joe Laser Artillery Soldier, codenamed Grand Slam. Grand Slam's real name is James J. Barney, and he is from Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. His primary military specialty is the artillery, and his secondary military specialty is the electronics engineer. Grand Slam received initial training in conventional artillery and served with a 155mm battery. Graduated Special Weapons School, top of the class, Special Education Artillery School, Advanced Tech School, and he's a qualified expert in the M16, M1911A1, and the HAL Heavy Artillery Laser. Grand Slam savors the idea of being the best field artilleryman G.I. Joe has to offer. And sometimes he might give you the impression that he's not listening, that he's too high on his horse, and a brigade of Cobras could walk by and he wouldn't even notice. But don't be fooled. He's just waiting for Cobra to let their guard down, and then wham, he really lets them have it. They say that he's soft-spoken and calm, just a bit shy, intelligent, and he loves to read escapist fantasy like science fiction and comic books. Not much is known about Grand Slam because they didn't really do much with him in the comics. He has a great look. He's got the red vest and red arm trappings on him. He was packaged with the HAL, the heavy artillery laser, when the toys first debuted in 1982. In order to make the toy, they used the same head that they used with Grunt and Zap. So technically, all three of them are triplets, I guess you'd say. Grand Slam's red baseball-like vest definitely differentiated him from the other Joes in the green shirt era. And a year later, in 1983, they released a version of him with the same kind of baseball vest, but this time it was painted silver or gray, which gave him a nice look and made him pretty unique for the time. We wouldn't get another figure until 2006. And he definitely didn't get a lot of screen time on the cartoon or on the comic book. So that's all I got to say about Grand Slam. James J. Barney, we salute you.
Now back to G.I. Joe.
So the plot here is Cobra's treating the Joes very much like they're superheroes. They're saying they have secret identities. They have family that we can get at. So they're going to attack their families. And I kind of like that because for me, they were always superheroes.
Yeah.
Dusty was a favorite, by the way.
Dusty's cool.
Dusty was cool because he had the floppy hat.
Yeah, man.
thingy.
He's got the camouflage on his face.
Yeah, Dusty was great. I never had the Dusty.
I
figure
love
that came
the
with wolf,
like.
though.
Now it looks corny as all get out, but I love as a kid I would have flipped. My brain would have exploded at how cool the crystals look here.
Oh yeah. Oh, I think they look great.
Punch up the Joe's family
I love the
background.
animation style on
Yes,
G.I. Joe
Commander.
too.
Code name,
I feel like
Quick.
it's a
Real
it's,
name, MacArthur S. Ito. Surviving relatives, mother and
MacArthur S. Ito is a
Current place of
gloriously lazy
Watts
name.
District.
I think
Los
he's named
Angeles,
after
California.
like named after General MacArthur.
It's
yeah.
ridiculous. It's absurd.
Yeah, yeah.
Why would you name your child? I don't know.
They were
it's ridiculous.
odd. Maybe they were big fan. I mean, you know. Listen, this is look at here's the big revelation. Quick Kick's wearing a shirt. All right,
I love Quick Kick.
Quick Kick's great, and he has a shirt on, and that's a victory.
Quick Kick's a big part of the G.I. Joe ongoing moving forward.
is he?
He's in the one shot, and he's gonna be a big part of the comic moving forward. But
So wearing a shirt.
He does wear a shirt, and we kind of went with more of an MMA look for him. Yanni redesigned him, and so he looks like like a bantamweight MMA fighter, right?
Very cool.
Yeah, and so he's still going to do, and like we've also kind of, it was a thing that was lightly mentioned in I think the Van Lente run that he's Chinese American now, and so we're really going to be leaning into all the like cinematic kung fu stuff with him and all.
Well, that's great because he's like a cinemaphile on the show.
Exactly,
Are you going to
yeah.
play with that?
No, probably not because it wasn't really mentioned in the previous run. So like I don't. That's probably not going to come up. We're really going to lean into like the serious martial artist aspect of it, which is fun.
That's pretty cool.
Research
Fun-
for me,
yeah.
Because I got to watch a lot. So in the one shot, he does a lot of what's it called? Wing Chun. Oh man,
Everybody Wing
Ooh,
Chun?
No, Wing Chun. So it's that is the style of kung fu that Ip Man, who's the guy who trained
Ip Man,
Bruce
yeah.
Lee,
Okay.
who trained Bruce Lee. That was what he fought.
Awesome.
Wing Chun. Yeah.
So you've got a big wrestling connection, and you're a big martial artist guy?
Look, I'm
Like,
wearing, I'm wearing my Bruce Lee shirt.
is it? Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, man.
That's sweet.
no, I love so like not like real martial arts. I like movie martial. I like somebody doing a horse stance and doing drunken master.
You
and
like
Greek
people
Kwan and stuff
pointing
like
their
that.
fingers at you and beckoning you.
Yeah, I
forward.
like all that stuff.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how to do anything. I just like the performative aspects of it. We missed it. We were yammering at each other about kung fu, and we missed Charlotte's family trying to beat the crap out of her. which is maybe my favorite part of this episode.
Yeah, well, she also like she claims Scarlet claims to be able to identify her brothers by the way they move.
Right, but they didn't notice the 800
Yeah, but
Cobra
no one
people
noticed
in
all
the
these
dojo.
Crimson Guardsmen. And yeah, so what's happening on the show is they're showing every Joe that was on leave getting called back, right, to help with this problem. And as soon as the Joe leaves their family, they then get kidnapped by Cobra. In this case, we're in Atlanta, and we're watching Scarlet's brothers get
All of her
get-
redheaded
although
brothers.
They're given as good as they get, though. They are given a piece, except I mean,
Ugh.
Storm Shadow's a ninja.
Yeah,
I
you
mean, you're
can't-
not going
you
to beat
can't-
Storm Shadow.
yeah, look at
but
that
like
guy.
her dad, who looks like Race Bannon. Like, look at,
He does look like
He
Grizzly
does.
Race Bannon.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thunder hardly ever
Matthew
used
Harris
on the Thunder's hardly
Breckenridge.
ever used on the show.
Current place of residence, Louisville, Kentucky.
We're going to lose.
I love this. And they're outside. They're barbecuing.
Yeah,
they're
at
having a
one
great time.
point- at
They're
one
rocking
point,
out. It's a jam
someone-
sesh.
Someone in Cobra needs to correct him and say it's Louisville, not Louisville. Louisville. Tell me about the artist on the G.I. Joe. Who's doing the
Yanni
art?
Milniani. And so it's everybody, including me, mispronounces it for a while because it's spelled Giannis Milanagiannis.
Okay.
But he's Greek, and the way that he Latinized his name, he used the G character. It's this like his name is the same first name as like '90s tenor sax Yanni.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
sure,
it's the
of
same
course.
name, but it's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah.
spelled
Yeah.
more confusingly. He's the best. I lucked out in a very real way having him on the book. He's probably best known for Prophet.
Oh, yeah.
which,
Yeah,
he was the artist
Liefeld
for
book.
more of Prophet than probably anybody else. There
A
are
lot of people love that book.
You're looking at one of them.
Yeah.
I was very, very excited because of that. And since he started working on the book, I've fallen in love with his webcomic, Old City Blues,
Okay.
which is also very, very cool. He's amazing, and like we knew we needed somebody who read as different and fresh and like a new sheen on G.I. Joe because there have been so many G.I. Joe comics at IDW. And we need to plant a flag in the ground and let people know that we're going to do something different. I'm getting distracted by Shipwreck So everybody else, when they go on leave, they put on
They put on
civvies,
some civvies.
Right?
Right.
They put on
Yeah,
whatever
chill,
they wear around the
chill.
house.
Shipwreck doesn't chill. There's no chill.
This is what Shipwreck wears around the house. The open like button-up
the-
navy shirt,
yeah,
too
the-
small for his big brawny
village
chest,
people look.
and the jaunty little cap
Yeah.
of his.
I mean,
It's
let's be
amazing.
clear. He found them. He was a merchant marine.
I know.
This
I
is
watched
not-
that episode
it's not-
recently.
it's not like
They just
this-
found-
yeah, it's
they
not like
found-
this is his
it was like
military
Casablanca
uniform.
or
Yeah.
something. They found him in just
Yeah.
a bar in the
Yeah.
desert.
This is not his military uniform. This is his everyday. I'm chilling.
He's
I'm
the
a merchant
best.
marine.
Shipwreck is the best.
He really is the best.
Shipwreck's also going to be a big part of the ongoing series
Is
moving
Polly
forward.
going to be a big part? That's what I want to know.
Polly is in Revolution. The
Does
one
Polly
shot.
talk?
She
Repeats?
Yeah, she repeats. Like she's not like a. Yeah, she's not like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
and me.
yeah,
a couple
yeah.
of conversationalists like us.
Well, you know.
Yanni. Back to Yanni though, because I just can't say enough how good he
Yeah.
is. When my editor Carlos asked me, how do you feel about Yanni? Like I was over the moon because I didn't even know he was an option. He's so good. If you're not familiar with his work, the best way I can describe it is he does 80s manga action figures and movement with crazy, hyper detailed, like Belgian clean line style, like Mobius-esque backgrounds. Super, super detailed and rad. Yeah, you're pulling. He's pulling out
got
the issue right
here.
now because
Got
I've
the issue
enticed
right
him.
in front of me.
I've suitably
I wanna see it.
enticed
Oh,
Joe.
okay. I see this.
Yeah, man. So like you can see, you
Yeah.
can see all of like the Otomo influence in this stuff.
Definitely,
And-
like a lot of speed lines
Yeah,
on the
dude,
action.
of course. And there's not as just because like the setting here, you don't see as much of the hyper detailed backgrounds.
Sure.
But in the first issue, you're gonna see a lot of it. That's
Oh, that's
gnarly
great.
that is.
That's great. What are those dire wraiths?
Listen, man, no spoilers. I want people to pick this thing up.
We just pointed at a book. Revolution is already like 8 issues in. It's not a surprise that the dire
Yeah, man,
wraiths are in
there are dire wraiths in it. That's a big part of Revolution. It's a big part of the GI Joe one shot as well.
Awesome.
Don't say anything about that.
Oh, okay.
But look
No,
at that.
yeah,
How
yeah,
do you feel about that?
Well, I feel like he's staring at it right there. Yeah, that's great.
It's really great.
That's really great.
We don't want to tell anybody because that's a secret. That's a spoiler.
No, that's a huge spoiler. I'm not saying a word. Is that Olivetti on that cover?
On the cover, yeah, for number 1.
That's great. I love his stuff.
He's really good. I
Yeah,
got to work with
yeah.
that guy on Punisher War Journal.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So that was the War Journal during Civil War? era? Was that?
Yeah, and it spun out of it as well. So I worked on it with Fraction and Olivetti for a while, and then Fraction and Remender and Chaikin for a while.
Cool. We go to commercial break with G.I. Joe's once again in peril. Quite frankly, we both looked away from the screen, so we
Just
don't know
yammering
what
at
happened.
each other. I don't know. It's fine. They'll figure it out. I have faith in them. They're real American heroes. It's fine.
He'll fight for freedom wherever there's trouble. G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe.
Leo Joe sees Cobra's new weapon, Hiss. Destro's a genius. Hiss is unbeatable. Surprise attack. Call in the Wolverine. Go get him, cover girl.
G.I. Joe. American hero.
So long, Wolverine. Hurry, Clutch. Wolverine's in trouble. Destro, look. Hiss is ready.
G.I. Joe, Wolverine, and Cobra's Hiss, each with figure, other figures, and equipment sold separately from Hasbro. Now, back to G.I. Joe.
And we're back. Oh, this is barbecue. This is barbecue's
I love
family.
this. I love that he
Yeah.
comes from a firefighter tradition.
Well, a couple episodes ago, we did The Viper is Coming. Do you remember that episode? Have you gotten there yet?
No, I haven't gotten there yet.
It's controversial because it's either you love it or you hate it because it's all about a pun. The whole thing is it's a Shaggy Dog story. The whole thing is based on the pun of misunderstanding the word wiper versus viper.
I love it.
And it's all about barbecue. Oh,
I'm on the love it side.
I can't wait for you to watch it.
I'm on the love it side of things already.
It's so great, and barbecue is he's the big that's his big feature. He's also got that strangest Boston accent. Yeah.
So this is the best part. They were worried about his dad, who was caught up in that burning building, and then some other guy who he doesn't know comes up and says, "Hey, your dad's fine." He says, "Oh, great."
Yeah. Okay.
I don't need to speak to it. He's fine. He's
Hey,
a fireman.
listen,
we'll figure
your
it out.
dad had things to do. You know, there was the Celtics game was on.
I'll explain everything. Get going.
I like that mustache on that guy. That's
I know.
impressive. That guy should be in G.I. Joe. Mustache like that.
Oh, it was the Baroness disguised as a fellow firefighter. They were doing the face masks before Tom Cruise, Mission Impossible. That man, Joe's had
Look
so
at those big
many
cigarro
Joe's had
cactuses
so
in the
many
back.
crazy face masks that it almost made Zartan.
Where are they
redundant.
where are they right now? They're in a desert?
Yeah, they're in like Utah desert or something.
Wait, why did they go to the desert? Just to blow
Well,
that
that's where
stuff
that.
up?
Yeah.
Because that town wasn't in the desert.
It was.
It was. It
Well,
certainly did look.
you
There
know,
were trees
terrain.
and stuff.
Terrain is very shifting on G.I. Joe. You can go from a
malleable.
swamp to like the Arctic with someone hanging
God,
on the
look at
outside of your vehicle.
This looks like it looks like they're in
Yeah, so
Egypt or somewhere.
Yeah,
it looks absurd.
they took a piece of the gem out to the desert to try to test how explosive it really is, and it's quite explosive.
Not a trace left, Duke. The crystals destroy themselves completely when they
Point
explode.
their walkie-talkies, which is like iPhone-esque walkie-talkies, is branded G.I. Joe.
I love it. Just
Like-
so everybody knows.
Yeah, just in case you find
Man,
this.
I like these episodes. I'm glad we're watching these. I like how it humanizes the characters, just seeing their families behind bars.
That's this one
Right now,
specifically.
all
no,
of her
this,
family's
this
locked up.
episode specifically, it is very, very character driven. Like, what's the big problem? There's a bunch. Once again, Cobra does something crazy. The Joes have to stop it. It's some crystals, and they have to figure out how to defuse it. That's it. That's really simple. There's no, there's no subplot.
We talked through Gung Ho's family, which I really love too, because there's I don't know you could
Well-
hear this, you could hear the CCR playing, you could hear Born on the Bayou blaring in the background as they hang out on the dock in these swamps where they live. I love it.
Yeah, G.I. Joe has more swamps per capita than any cartoon in the history of cartoons. So they're putting the relatives into what we can call the brainwave scanner, right?
I would.
Doctor.
Why not?
Dr. Brain? No, not he was
Mindbender?
Mindbenders. No. Dr. Venom's brainwave.
Oh,
scanner.
yeah.
I mean, it's essentially that. So it's this machine that's gonna brainwash
Look at
the
the wheels on
family.
that thing.
That's cool. So the Joes are loading up these crystals onto a very delicate-looking piece of machinery, and they're going to get them out of here because they have to protect. So we've got Thunder and
I thought Barbecue was a robot when I was a kid.
see.
Is that fair? Is
No,
that-
it's totally fair.
It's reasonable, right?
I loved. You talk about everyone loves Snake Eyes, and certainly I'm on record with that. Blowtorch. Blowtorch was my guy.
Blowtorch is cool.
Because he had the torch that connected all the way to the backpack, and then he had the face mask too, and then the color scheme was awesome.
directly to the signals
they're all. I mean, I don't know.
They're all great.
Yeah, there are very few Joes that aren't objectively great.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah.
They're just like the character designs. They're just they're amazing. They're
Let me
really,
throw
really
this out
great.
there. Battle Force 2000.
I don't know.
Oh.
What? I don't know. What?
In the later years.
Oh,
There
yeah.
were
I don't
some
know.
stinkers.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. Yeah, I mean, like even the ones that aren't good are, a lot of times they're like deliciously bad. Or at worst they're just kind of a little bit boring.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like I don't know. Like I can't really get excited about Grunt.
Well, so
Sorry.
there's
Sorry,
no.
Grunt fans.
It's
I just
true. I
can't.
don't think Grunt is exciting. But here's the thing about Grunt, though. Strangely, his picture is probably used more than any other picture because he was that generic Joe, like the cover on the card.
Sure.
That was probably used in more marketing pieces.
I believe it.
Than almost anything else.
I don't know, nobody wanted that toy though.
Right.
It was boring.
But you saw that picture everywhere. That represented G.I. Joe in so many places. So
this is amazing.
The Joes are caught in they're on a desert road or mountain road, and they run across a bunch of Cobra people that are going to bar them from traveling. And Shipwreck recognizes one of the Cobra soldiers.
Jesse!
It's Jesse! And
The
Ray
weird
Spann
orphan
and
child.
O'Hara.
Wait, so I missed both when I watched this past weekend and also just now. What is his relationship with Jesse? It's just another orphan
No, it's
child?
it's his. Yeah, he was adopted, and it's his adopted family's. He's his uncle. So it's his adopted family's sister's adopted kid.
Oh, but Jesse is also adopted.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Jesse's also
gotcha.
adopted. So we're going to be continued. So you got to come back next week to find out what happens. Aubrey, first episode. What do you think?
I love it. I love it in a real way. I love all the family stuff. I love that. I love seeing where they did a really good job choosing the Joes to get for their family to get abducted because they're all in very different places. So you've got Spirit and his family's in the Southwest. You've got Hector X Delgado's family in San Diego. You've got Etienne Lafitte, or what is it?
Yeah, no.
Is that it?
Etienne Lafitte.
Like he's down in
Is
down in the
Gung-Ho,
bayou.
one of the guys in the new one?
So he's not in the one shot.
Yeah.
But I do have big plans for Gung Ho. I love Gung Ho because he looks like a Tom of Finland drawing.
Who?
Look it up later.
Okay.
Everybody else look it up now. Look it up later. He looks like a Tom of Finland drawing. He's just amazing. He's got the hat and the mustache and the big tattoo and open chest and all. He's great. Yeah, he's definitely going to be in it.
Awesome. Well, listen, we're so excited because we're going to continue this conversation next week on Captives of Cobra Part 2. Now, remember, you guys can find Aubrey on Twitter and Facebook at Aubrey Sitterson. Make sure you go to your local comic shop and you tell them, I need to read G.I. Joe Revolution and the new G.I. Joe ongoing, which drops
December 28th.
December 28th. Oh my God! Take your Christmas money.
And and here's the thing, not to plug an alternate route when I'm sitting in a local comic shop, but if you live in a place where you can't get
you get
to
it
a
digital.
local comic shop, go to Comixology.com.
Totally.
Buy it digitally. It's the same great comic, just in a different format.
We want you to read it. We want you to spread.
We want you to pay for
spread
it.
the good word of Joe.
Don't
pay
get
for it.
Don't get a torrent.
Keep Aubrey
jerks.
employed.
Yes,
hashtag.
please.
And you know what? So now, thank you for listening. We're going to give out the code for Golden Apple Comics.
Cool. I'm stoked.
So if you come into Golden Apple Comics on Friday morning, Black Friday morning, and if you tell the cashier, Yo Joe, you will get 75% off your back issue purchase.
That's huge. That's very
huge.
cool. And y'all have,
That's huge.
y'all have a ton of back issues.
We've got a lot of really good back issues. It does not include the case books, but we are giving a special discount on the case books. But if you come in, we got thousands of alphabetical back issues, 75% off. Come in, you say, Yo, Joe.
I'm planning to finish out my Stalker run.
Well, listen,
Do you know
Aubrey.
Stalker? It's like an old DC Sword and Sorcery comic.
I do. Yes, I do.
It's neat. And I'm
listen,
gonna
Aubrey,
finish it out.
Thank you for being a guest.
Thank you for having me.
Now you Joe, and Joeing is half the battle.
Yo, Joe!